One of Shane's all-time favorite games is being turned into a movie.
Metal Gear?
Hot take!
Ever since Metal Gear Solid originally came out on the PlayStation 1, everyone kept saying that there should be a movie about it. And there's always been this talk about the movie actually happening, but it looks like we might be getting closer than we've ever gotten before.
That's right. The film director Jordan Vogt-Roberts, he's come out recently and said that the film, the script is basically finalized, it's in the mail, and we're going to see what happens from there. So this is like the big step.
Now, for those of you that follow Kojima's Twitter accounts, not that I do or anything, or pay attention to all the pictures he takes, you may have noticed that there's been a lot of pictures he's been taking specifically with this director and having lots of conversations and late-night meals with him. So it clearly seems like this is going to be more of a real thing than it's ever been in the past.
Yeah.
And even though there has been this huge, divide between Konami and Kojima, it looks like the director is really caring more about what Kojima has to say about this, and less maybe about what Konami has to say.
That's right. Yeah, they do have a friendship, and we've seen even on the on Jordan Vogt-Roberts, his Twitter page, we've been seeing that since July 13th, because that was the 31st anniversary of Metal Gear. They've been posting like concept art for the film. So every day, like 31 days straight, they're going to be posting concept art. We don't know. I heard that it's not official concept art. It's just like concept art. I don't know what the heck that means.
That just means it's the ideas of what the ideas can actually look like.
Okay, no, it's not official movie art.
Yes,
so
it's not licensed by the studio. It's not commissioned.
Right.
It's not actually supposed to be there. It's just basically what happens is when you go to produce a movie, what you do is you create a bunch of pitches, and these pitches can be written documents. They can be shot assets. In fact, a really good example of this is most recently Nathan Fillion today released a short film that stars him and a couple of other notable actors as Nathan Drake from Uncharted, and it looks like he wants to make this happen. So it seems that he put all of his money and effort into making this little project happen just to prove to people that this is something people want.
Yeah, that seems like a little bit less off the ground than what this is. Maybe it's more like a Deadpool circumstance where they're like, hey, look how cool this is, now buy into this. Let's get this rolling. Because we've heard about so many of these movies that have been up in the air for such a long time with like big names surrounding them. We've heard about BioShock, we've heard about Portal, a lot of the Half-Life and Valve sort of assets being looked at by people like J.J. Abrams, and I even think Steven Spielberg was connected to a video game movie before.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Ready Player One as
several,
well. Yeah. So it's always interesting to hear the news and rumors and stuff, but this feels like it's the first sort of concrete step in a good direction for the Metal Gear film, and the fact that Kojima's connected to this and such good friends with the director. It seems like a pretty cool thing. I don't know. We talked about the director a little bit.
So let's really break into what we do know about the film. So first off, who's the screenwriter? So the screenwriter's the same screenwriter that's been working on the Jurassic World series. The last time we heard about this, he was. We don't know if he's still connected. So that's Derek Connolly. So yeah, we've seen those films. As far as story's concerned, I know we were discussing this earlier. Neither of us were really that blown away. I haven't seen the second Jurassic World. I like Jurassic World, but I like Jurassic World in the same way that I just appreciate that it's a continuation of the series. That movie is so similar to the original that it really had nothing new to say. And that's not really a fault of the writer, right? The writer might have just been given this opportunity and he wanted to go for it. And for some, it's just a paying gig, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's really expecting, the Jurassic World series at this point to light the world on fire unless they really do like, Jurassic Park on the moon or something, And
that's such a huge...
Don't do that, please.
It's such a huge franchise that it makes you wonder, like, okay, was he the only person writing? Yeah. I'm sure there were a lot of, like...
I guarantee you, ever since the third film, they've been trying to bring it back in some way. There's probably been a whole bunch of ideas at the table and stuff like that. But with that being said, last we heard he was the one that was involved. That doesn't mean he's actually going to be involved. Yeah. But when it comes to the director, we're fairly certain this is the director that's going to do it.
He sat down and had a talk with IGN just recently and was discussing the film. He's really excited about it, pretty much promoting the film in a sense. sense at these very early steps. So it does seem like he is connected to it. Whether or not he continues to move forward with the project, we'll just have to wait and see.
See, so this is what's a very interesting situation going on. I don't know why it's happening in this way, but typically when you hear about movies, a team has worked on it in private, has pitched it to a studio, the studio has okayed it, and then they create some kind of asset to do some kind of announcement that the film is being shot or something like that. Usually you don't just see the director come out by himself and talk about, oh, we're going to be doing this, this, and this. You do hear about it once in a while. For instance, the director of Blade Runner 2049, he came out and said, I'm doing Dune next. That's going to be my next thing. For those of you that don't know what Dune is, go watch Game Club Episode 1 on Rerez. So there's this really cool idea that the director's that hyped about it and that interested that he wants to do it.
I feel like it's the directors that have built up a bit of a body of work that can do that. Like when Tarantino comes out and says something like that, or like Spielberg or someone else. They have more, I don't know, they have so much clout that they can just go ahead and say whatever they're working on, and people get excited.
But that's what the interesting thing about this director is, right? He doesn't have a really large catalog. Now, he's worked on a lot of stuff, primarily things like television shows and stuff like that. You may have seen some of his work when you actually saw the opening trailer for Destiny 2. There was like this game trailer that they did, a live action one, and that live action trailer actually stars Nathan Fillion as the main protagonist.
That's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, and well, that one, personally, from my own personal feeling, I didn't think that trailer was bad. Like, there was a lot of really good aspects of it, but I don't think it really hammered home what would make Destiny 2 so interesting. But let's be fair, Destiny 2 wasn't very interesting, so it's not really his fault on that front. But you did see his first film.
Yes, I did. That was Kings of Summer, which was released a few years ago. And
well, not his first film, but like one of his earlier works.
It was quite big for him, and it's what got him noticed and what got him to his next level of filmmaking. I don't know if we spoke about that yet.
Yeah, because it's weird when you hear Kings of Summer. Like, explain Kings of Summer just a little bit, so we can.
And then we have to take these films into consideration when thinking about a stealth action film, right? So the Kings of Summer it's a tale about a few adolescent boys who are just kind of growing up. It's comedic. It's it's kind of weird at points, but it's a very small film, and it feels like a growing up in summer film, right? Okay, and then the next film that he made was
Kong Skull Island.
Kong Skull Island.
I mean, it is so. It's a good thing to see a director willing to jump from one very different idea to another, because it shows that he has the talent to move between things. Now, I've never watched either of these films. You did watch a little bit of Kong.
Yeah, I saw some of Kong Skull Island, and it's a very grandiose film. It's a lot of big action scenes and stuff, explosions. It's very, very different from the kind of smaller and like more kind of sentimental comedy that was Kings of Summer. Yeah, very different.
And I think that in the most ideal world, and I know this is never going to happen, I really feel like Kojima is a filmmaker. He takes stories and narratives and he weaves them into his work, and I feel that he is a filmmaker that just happens to be making really incredible video game experiences. I felt that ever since I played Snatcher, ever since I played Policenauts and Metal Gear, there's this idea that he's really carrying that stuff along. So him not directing it and actually having some kind of a relationship with the director that gives me a lot of hope for the project.
Yeah, it does. It is weird, though, thinking about that, right? Because we're taking a person's work who leans so heavily on cinema, and then we're making it cinematic. It's this whole strange sort of spin, right?
That's true.
So
there's really interesting ideas that could be at play here. If I were to make any personal suggestions, if he's watching, I don't know if he is.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
But there's some really cool ideas that you could implement by looking at the video game and taking those things forward. Now, as we are to understand, there is already a script done.
Yes.
But one of the most important things that Kojima does in his work is the ability to take people and make them realize that they're in an experience that is digital. So one of the ways he does that is he reads the memory card, he shakes the controller.
Tells you about the instruction manual.
Exactly, right? And there's these ideas that are at play. And I think in order for a Metal Gear Solid game to do very well, I think that you're going to have like the same cast of characters you would have in the game, I would imagine. You'd have Psycho Mantis and stuff like that. So Psycho Mantis kind of playing with the idea that you're watching a movie and figuring out a way to really transition that and to make the audience feel uncomfortable and unsettled.
Right.
I think that's the way you really want to achieve that.
I'm hoping to see that too, because Jordan Roberts, he actually came out as saying, every director always says that the film that they're going to work on is going to be the greatest thing ever. But he basically sat down and said it's going to be one of the coolest, weirdest, most Kojima things. So as soon as he says weirdest, I'm like, okay. Like, I really hope he digs into the same sort of strangeness we got from, like, physically looking at your, like, the packaging of Metal Gear Solid and stuff to get information. Like, I want kind of a fourth wall break, but not like for comedic effect, just for, like, a different sort of feeling. And that's what he seems to want to capture. He did go on to say, like, look, there have been video game movies in the past, and they take story, and they grab story sometimes from the video game. But the feeling that you get from playing these games, we haven't really seen a great implementation of them into the film. So the director was kind of pointing towards some other films that weren't necessarily video game films that he thought were kind of video gamey, like Edge of Tomorrow, which had that sort of respawning nature to it, or like Snowpiercer. Did you ever see Snowpiercer?
No, I didn't.
Okay, Snowpiercer was a Korean film with a bunch of North American actors, and in it, they're riding in a train. I won't throw in any spoilers, but basically they're going from car to car in it, and it kind of feels like levels in a video game.
Okay.
In a way.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like more of getting that feeling. Of course, he wants the story to be there, but he wants that Metal Gear feeling.
I really feel in order to really capture what Metal Gear has felt like for the past couple of years,
a dog needs to urinate on some cardboard. I agree.
It would be a thing. I believe the composer for Metal Gear Solid 2, Harry Gregson Williams, I believe that's his name. He is actually a film composer, and he has the ability to write really impressive, massive, interesting scores. And the original Metal Gear Solid didn't really have a orchestral score. It had a synthesized score, like it was digitized, but it wasn't using a full-on orchestra. And I really feel that if they were to bring him on board and to bring that kind of idea there, I forget the name of the guy who does the intro cinematics for Metal Gear Solid 3, but that's actually a well-known person who's worked on large films before creating intro scenes. Some people don't know this, but the actual intro sequences to movies, like with 007 and those films like that, those are typically art houses or directional houses that are actually making unique little short films for the beginning of the movies that exist in their own little bubble that kind of give you an idea of what the scope of the movie is going to be like. And because Metal Gear Solid in such a way is about army, it's about military sneaking, espionage, I feel like it needs to have some kind of intro like that to really to grab the audience and make them get pulled into the experience.
I do too. I really do feel though, like I hope that the film doesn't try to cram too much into it, because there's so much there, and it feels like each of these games Kojima has sort of made a film. Just cutscenes alone. I mean, Metal Gear Solid 4. How many hours of cutscenes? Like 20 or something?
A lot.
It's ridiculous. So I really hope that they concentrate on something that feels like I want to even dial it back to the original Metal Gear games, where it's just like one guy and he's just learning about these few things here or there.
Honestly, there's nothing wrong with that, because at this point, if you were to make a Metal Gear Solid movie, it would be starting up at a narrative that nobody knows about, right?
Right. Like we played Metal Gear Solid when we were kids, and like we jumped into it. We consumed everything, right? But you can't do that with a film. We don't have instruction books and stuff, and it depends on how he approaches the film. But the original Metal Gear game, like, it was far more dialed back. This is the one on the MSX, of course.
Well, right? So Metal Gear Solid has a briefing sequence where Snake is sitting in like just this locker area, and the Colonel comes out and he basically explains what's happening. So that narrative there is not going to be something you would see in a movie, and it literally explains all the previous events. There's also these wonderful write-ups that you can read that are actually backstories to the very first two games to give you a really good idea of what has happened. And the reason they did that was because with the original Metal Gear Solid, well, in North America, we never got the MSX games, which was the real narrative.
We did get Metal Gear games, but they were not the Metal Gear games that were popularized in Japan.
I believe Big Boss was a robot in that one, or like his computer. Like, the whole thing just doesn't really work out. Now, with this, I feel that they should be able to kind of rewrite the narrative a little bit. In this instance, I feel if there's going to be some kind of teacher ideology with Master Miller and stuff like that, I think these should be things like a wetwork team that works with Snake to bring him into things, and they rewrite the narrative to basically say that he's just been around, and he's like Snake Plissken. He's been there for years, everybody knows what he's good at, and he's just really, really solid at that work. But they don't need to really dive into his prior experiences and stuff like that, because maybe this movie does well, then you go backwards and talk about those stories. But this, in order for it to be successful, I feel it needs to be about Metal Gear Solid, because so very few people in North America understand the scope of the very first two games, and I don't think it's going to grab the same attention that it could if it was just about Solid.
Okay.
People want to see some of those characters. They want to see Vulcan Raven. They want to see the Decoy Octopus will be hilarious because he'll be an actor that just looks like an actor the entire time, and you never get to see what he actually looks like.
Yeah. So you're saying you do want it in that Metal Gear Solid world, basically?
I think that might be
dialed back a little bit?
Dialed back and rewritten to formulate in that sense, because I think that'd be the best way.
I kind of feel the same way. And I do kind of appreciate that this director's coming on board, because he has done so many things with scale in Kong Skull Island, and scale is a huge part of Metal Gear. Giant robots, man, and they might not be there the entire time, but yeah.
You know, it's interesting because a lot of the action pieces that are set out in Metal Gear Solid primarily take place in snowy, very just bluish hue areas, and there's not a lot of warmth in that entire game. And what I think would be very interesting to play with that is essentially the concept of shooting in ice lockers and stuff like that, actually making your actors a little cool to see real breath on their mouths. I know that there's this idea
Kojima would do it that way.
Yeah, there's this idea of making digitized breath and stuff like that, and it works, okay? We've seen it all over the place. There's been movies that do that once in a while, but I really feel to get the right perspective of things, there should be a way to go about it to make this, the actors feel like they're actually in that situation without actually hurting them, without being dangerous either.
I almost feel if Kojima had a couple days off, he would probably like go to the film set.
You know he will be.
Yeah,
that's going to happen.
I hope so, and I hope he's just like, hey, why don't you just do it this way? And then it's like another like 2 months of filming because of one suggestion that Kojima makes. But it works.
What I would want to see, and I think this would be, I'm just spitballing an idea here, but I think this would be the way that this would actually work out quite well. I do believe in order for Psycho Mantis to be involved in this movie, to actually be there, Psycho Mantis needs to be a very scary character that will, because he really is. He's a freaky, weird-looking person. He seems to be powerful. He can float in the air and stuff, and that's all psychosis. Like, it's not actually happening, right? But everyone sees it that way.
The way that he used them in Metal Gear Solid was so fantastic, especially if it was your first playthrough and you did have some other Konami data on your card, like just like going in and controlling your controller.
Yeah, set it on the ground, he would move it to the left and right. It was really weird.
What the heck is going on? I want that exact same sort of reaction when I see this guy.
What I'm thinking, right, is you have to use the current audience that's watching the movie against them, their own well-being. So you have to think about the way a viewer would be watching this. So pretty much everyone that's watching the movie would be sitting down and they've got a cell phone. So for one reason or another, he turns to the screen or he's talking to Snake and he goes, I have the ability to alter a biomechanical device, whatever, and he snaps his fingers or does something like that, and then everyone's phone in the audience starts ringing. And the way they do that is just with 5.1 or 7.1 Adobe Atmos sound, and you just basically make it roll all the way back, and everyone would be checking. That would be nuts.
That's an incredible idea,
right?
Actually, yeah.
See, that's the concept about doing this character. The moment you're able to make the audience look around them and make them basically panic for the world they're in, not to really scare them, it's just to give them this idea that, oh my God, this movie really makes you think.
That's the feeling we had when we played that back in the 90s. Yeah.
And I really feel that's the kind of idea that, and I to be honest, I don't know this director's work that well, but from what I've seen, I think he's capable of doing this.
Right. He's a young guy, and he's only made a few projects, but like he is speaking to the right person as far as I'm concerned.
I'd rather see someone like him take it than somebody with experience, because I want to see, I mean, he's got experience making films. I just want to see somebody do it that has the energy and the drive and the creativity to think differently.
And maybe someone who's not too set in their ways, because there are some directors that have a specific style, and with a franchise like this, you got to adapt to a certain person's style. We both know that.
Because somebody could take this and just make it a very bland and uninteresting experience. Right. And I truly believe that this team, that Kojima's willingness to work with this person, and no doubt they've been sitting down and talking about like classic films. It's not like Kojima doesn't like movies. He loves movies. He loves music. He incorporates ideas and themes from those things he loves so much in his own video games and work that it almost becomes this kind of revisionist ideology of older media that's being played again. Yeah. So I really feel that could work. But what do you think? Do you feel that this game could be turned into a movie, or do you think it shouldn't be done at all? And if you're not a big fan of the director, or not a big fan of Kojima, and if you're a big fan of Metal Gear, that would be weird, who do you think should actually make this? And just for fun, do you think they should bring Metal Gear Solid back and have a remake? Because if this game, or if this movie does well, likely Konami is probably going to want to make a movie.
That's true.
A movie game, sorry. Yeah. So there's a chance that you're probably going to see a remake of Metal Gear Solid probably happen around the same time.
Metal Gear Solid, the movie, or the game, the movie, the game?
Something like that, right? You'll have all the actors from the movie reprising the roles from the movie and the game. Fighter. It would be weird, but that might be something that might happen. Maybe that's another conversation for another day. Until then, though, what do you think about this movie? Let us know in the comments below.